You won't believe how one betrayal shattered a perfect life. Michael thought his marriage to Sarah was a dream come true, until a shocking message revealed the truth. Secret affairs, lies, hidden meetings, all exposed. What happened next? A real story of betrayal, revelation, and just punishment that made the guilty regret everything. Are you ready to discover how the truth changed their fates? Michael Thompson, a 35-year-old engineer from Seattle, always believed he had it all. A loving wife, Sarah, a sharp-witted marketing manager, and their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, filled his life with purpose. To their neighbors, they were the picture of success. Michael coached Lily's soccer team every Saturday, barking encouragement from the sidelines, while Sarah organized book drives at the local library, her laughter echoing through the community center. Their life felt like a well-oiled machine, predictable, steady, happy. Or so Michael thought. It was a crisp Tuesday morning when the first crack appeared. Sarah was rushing, as she often did lately, claiming a critical project deadline at work. She grabbed her laptop, muttered something about late meetings, and kissed Lily's forehead before darting out the door. Michael, juggling his remote workday prep and Lily's school lunch, barely registered her haste. But as the door slammed shut, her phone, left on the kitchen counter, buzzed once, then twice. The screen lit up, and Michael froze. A notification from Jake, Sarah's co-worker, flashed across the lock screen. Can't wait for tonight. Hotel rooms booked. The words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. His hands went cold, his heart pounding as if it might break through his chest. He stared at the phone, willing it to be a mistake, a misdirected message, a prank, anything but what it seemed. Jake, the guy who'd sat at their dinner table, shared beers during game nights, and high-fived Lily after her soccer goals. Jake, their friend. Michael's mind raced, torn between disbelief and a creeping dread. He tried to shake it off, telling himself he was overreacting. Sarah had been stressed, her marketing firm pushing her hard with new campaigns. Late nights weren't unusual, but the message gnawed at him, a splinter in his thoughts. He set the phone down and started his work, answering emails, tweaking project designs. Yet every few minutes, his eyes drifted back to the device, still buzzing intermittently. An hour later, he couldn't stand it anymore. With Lily at school and the house eerily quiet, Michael picked up the phone. Sarah had shared her password years ago, a gesture of trust, he thought. His fingers trembled as he typed it in, half expecting to find nothing but work emails. Instead, the screen unlocked to a flood of evidence that turned his stomach. Messages between Sarah and Jake, dozens of them, stretched back months. "Miss you already," Sarah had written after a supposed business trip. "You make me feel alive," Jake replied. There were photos, Sarah and Jake in a car, her hand on his, their smiles too intimate. A selfie in a dimly lit restaurant, captioned "Our spot." Michael's knees buckled. He sank into a chair, scrolling through a timeline of betrayal. The deeper he dug, the worse it got. A video, time-stamped 3 weeks ago, showed them laughing in a hotel lobby, Sarah's arm looped through Jake's. Screenshots of flirty conversations revealed plans for secret meetups, excuses Sarah had fed Michael about client dinners or team-building events. One message from Sarah, sent just 2 days ago, burned into his mind. "I wish we could stop hiding. I'm tired of lying to him." Jake's reply was a dagger. "You deserve better. I'm here when you're ready to leave." Michael's breath grew shallow, his vision blurring. This wasn't a fling. It was a full-blown affair, deliberate and sustained. Every memory of the past year twisted in his head. The time Sarah came home late, claiming exhaustion. The hushed phone call she took in the garage, saying it was her boss. The way Jake had clapped Michael on the shoulder at Lily's last game, grinning like they were buddies. The betrayal wasn't just Sarah's. It was Jake's too, a double stab from someone Michael had trusted. He copied everything to his laptop. Photos, videos, texts. His hands moving mechanically, fueled by a mix of shock and cold clarity. He didn't cry or yell. Instead, a quiet rage settled in, sharpening his focus. This wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about deception, a calculated lie that had unraveled his life. Michael knew he couldn't confront Sarah yet. A simple argument wouldn't match the scale of what they'd done. They'd made their choices, and now he'd make his. As he organized the files, naming each one by date and content, a plan took shape. He wouldn't scream or break things. He'd expose them, let the truth do the damage. Michael opened an anonymous email account, his fingers steady now, and began drafting a message that would turn their world upside down. The subject line was simple: the truth about Sarah and Jake. He attached the most damning evidence: photos of their hotel rendezvous, snippets of their love-struck messages. The recipient list grew: Sarah's parents, Jake's wife Kate, their co-workers, their boss, mutual friends. Each name added weight to what was coming. Michael paused, his cursor hovering over the send button. A part of him wanted to stop, to pretend he'd never seen that message, to keep his family intact for Lily's sake. But the truth was undeniable, and so was his resolve. He thought of Lily, her innocent trust in her parents, and how Sarah and Jake had risked shattering her world. This wasn't just about him anymore. With a deep breath, he clicked send, scheduling the emails to hit inboxes simultaneously that afternoon. The die was cast. As he leaned back, his phone buzzed. Sarah, texting about picking up Lily later. Michael didn't reply. He sat in silence, waiting for the explosion he'd just ignited, knowing that by the end of the day, Sarah and Jake would face the consequences of their betrayal. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. You won't believe what Michael did next. After uncovering Sarah's secret affair with Jake, he sent a bombshell email exposing their lies to everyone: family, friends, co-workers. The truth is out, and chaos is about to erupt. What happens when Sarah and Jake realize their betrayal has been revealed? A real story of deception, confrontation, and a reckoning that will leave you speechless. Ready for the fallout? Michael Thompson sat at his laptop in their Seattle home, the weight of his decision settling like a stone in his chest. The anonymous email, loaded with photos, texts, and videos of Sarah's year-long affair with Jake, was now hurtling through cyberspace, set to land in dozens of inboxes at 2 p.m. sharp. He glanced at the clock, 11:47 a.m. 2 hours until the lives of his wife, her lover, and everyone connected to them would implode. Michael didn't feel triumph, only a cold determination to see this through for himself and his daughter, Lily. He tried to focus on work, answering emails for his engineering project, but his mind kept replaying the evidence: Sarah's flirty messages, Jake's smug replies, their stolen moments in hotel rooms and parking lots. Each file he'd copied felt like a brick in a wall of truth he'd built to protect himself from their lies. But doubt crept in. Would exposing them hurt Lily more than it would heal him? He pushed the thought aside. Sarah and Jake had made their choices. Now they'd face the consequences. At 1:55 p.m., Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Running late, client meeting dragged. Can you get Lily from school? He stared at the message, her casual lie stoking his resolve. No reply. He waited, eyes fixed on his laptop, imagining the moment the emails would hit. 5 minutes later, his phone lit up with notifications, calls, texts, voicemails, but he ignored them all. The storm had begun. Across town, Sarah sat in a conference room at her marketing firm, pitching a campaign to a client. Her phone, now retrieved from home during her lunch break, vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it, focusing on her slides, until a colleague whispered, "Sarah, you need to check your email." Now, puzzled, she opened her inbox on her laptop. The subject line, "The truth about Sarah and Jake," stopped her cold. Her heart raced as she clicked, revealing photos of her and Jake in compromising moments, holding hands, kissing, laughing in a motel lobby. Her breath caught, the room spinning. The client's voice faded as her screen filled with messages she'd sent Jake, each one a nail in the coffin of her carefully curated life. She gasped, her laptop slipping to the floor, and collapsed in her chair, the room erupting in murmurs. At the same time, Jake was in a meeting upstairs, reviewing budget reports. His phone buzzed with the same email. He opened it, and his face drained of color. The projector, synced to his laptop, briefly flashed a photo of him and Sarah in a car before he slammed the screen shut. His boss, a stern woman named Ellen, stood up. "Jake, my office." Now, colleagues exchanged glances, whispers spreading like wildfire. Jake's hands shook as he followed her, knowing his career was over before she even spoke. The fallout was swift. Sarah's parents called her, their voices thick with disappointment, demanding explanations she couldn't give. Jake's wife, Kate, opened the email at home, her hands trembling as she listened to audio clips of Jake promising Sarah a future together. She threw his clothes onto the lawn, tears streaming as their 2 kids watched, confused. By 3 p.m., the company's HR department had summoned both Sarah and Jake. Ellen, flanked by an HR rep, didn't mince words. Your actions violate our ethics policy. You're both terminated, effective immediately. Clear out your desks. Sarah tried to speak, but Ellen cut her off. There's nothing to discuss. Leave. Sarah drove home, her vision blurred by tears, her mind a tangle of panic and guilt. She'd never meant for it to go this far. Jake had been a thrill, an escape from routine, but now her marriage, her job, her reputation, everything was crumbling. She pulled into the driveway, her hands shaking on the steering wheel, dreading the confrontation with Michael. Meanwhile, Jake faced his own reckoning. Kate, resolute, told him to leave their home. You did this to us, she said, slamming the door as he stood on the porch, bags at his feet. Michael, still at home, saw the chaos unfold through texts and voicemails flooding his phone. Sarah's best friend, Lisa, begged him to call her. Jake's brother sent a furious message, accusing Michael of ruining lives. But Michael stayed silent, letting the truth do the talking. He thought of Lily, safe at school, unaware of the storm her parents were in. His heart ached for her, but he knew this had to happen. Sarah and Jake had built a house of lies, and he'd just torn it down. As the afternoon waned, Michael prepared for Sarah's return. He didn't know what she'd say, excuses, apologies, or accusations, but he was ready. The evidence was irrefutable, and so was his resolve. When he heard her car pull up, he stood in the living room, arms crossed, waiting. The door opened, and Sarah stepped inside, her eyes red, her posture defeated. Michael, please, she started, her voice breaking. He held up a hand, his voice steady but ice-cold. Don't. Just pack your things. The words hung in the air, a line drawn between the life they'd had and the one about to begin. You won't believe the chaos that erupted. Michael's email exposing Sarah and Jake's affair turned their lives upside down. Jobs lost, families shattered, reputations in ruins. But the real storm is just beginning. As Sarah faces Michael's icy resolve and Jake spirals into desperation, the truth tightens its grip. What happens when betrayal's consequences hit harder than anyone expected? A real story of reckoning that'll keep you on edge. The air in the Seattle home was thick with tension as Sarah stood in the doorway, her eyes red from crying, her hands trembling. Michael, arms crossed, stared at her with a coldness she'd never seen in their 12 years together. The email he'd sent, loaded with photos, texts, and audio of her affair with Jake, had detonated their lives. By 4 p.m., the fallout was undeniable. Sarah and Jake were fired, their families reeling, their social circles buzzing with shock. But this moment in their living room was where the real confrontation began. Michael, please, let me explain, Sarah stammered, stepping forward. Her voice cracked, desperate. It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you or Lily. Michael's jaw tightened. He'd spent hours staring at her messages to Jake, each one a betrayal of their vows, their daughter, their life. A mistake, he said, his tone sharp but controlled. A year of lies isn't a mistake. It's a choice. You chose him. Now you'll live with it. He pointed to the stairs. Pack your things. You're done here. Sarah's knees buckled, but she caught herself on the doorframe. Please, for Lily's sake, let's talk. I'll do anything to fix this. Michael shook his head, his voice unwavering. Lily's the only reason I'm not screaming. You risked her happiness for him. Get out. His words cut deeper than any shout, and Sarah, sobbing, stumbled upstairs to gather her belongings. Michael turned away, focusing on his phone to arrange for Lily to stay with his sister after school. He wouldn't let his daughter walk into this mess. Across town, Jake was facing his own collapse. Kate, his wife of 10 years, had thrown him out after seeing the email. Standing on their porch, surrounded by his scattered clothes, Jake tried calling her, but she'd blocked his number. His kids, confused and tearful, peered through the window as Kate ushered them away. Jake's next call was to Sarah, his voice frantic. Did you tell him? How did Michael get those messages? Sarah, still packing, snapped back through tears. I didn't tell anyone. You said you deleted those photos, Jake. Their call ended in accusations, each blaming the other for the exposure. At the marketing firm, the scandal spread like wildfire. Colleagues forwarded the email, clients demanded explanations, and the company's social media was flooded with questions about ethical standards. Ellen, the boss, issued a statement distancing the firm from Sarah and Jake's actions, but the damage was done. A major client pulled a contract, citing unprofessional conduct. Sarah's best friend, Lisa, texted her, "How could you do this to Michael?" To Lily, Sarah didn't reply. She had no defense. Michael, meanwhile, fielded calls from his own circle. His brother urged him to stay calm for Lily's sake, while Sarah's parents left voicemails begging for a chance to mediate. Michael ignored them, his focus on protecting his daughter and moving forward. He contacted a lawyer to start divorce proceedings, requesting full custody of Lily. The evidence he'd gathered would make it a straightforward case, but the thought of explaining this to his 8-year-old daughter gnawed at him. He'd shield her as long as he could. By evening, Sarah returned downstairs with a suitcase, her face streaked with tears. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice small. Michael didn't look up from his laptop. "Anywhere but here. You made your bed with Jake. Lie in it." She lingered, hoping for a crack in his resolve, but Michael's silence was deafening. Defeated, she left, driving to a hotel, her life unraveling with every mile. Jake, meanwhile, checked into a cheap motel, his savings drained by the sudden upheaval. He tried calling mutual friends, but most didn't answer. One, a coworker named Tom, picked up only to say, "You crossed the line, man. Don't call me again." Jake's desperation grew as he realized the scandal had tainted his professional network. Jobless, homeless, and cut off from his kids, he sat on the motel bed, staring at a text from Sarah. "This is your fault. Fix it." But there was no fixing this. Michael spent the evening alone, the house quiet without Lily's laughter. He thought of the email's impact. Sarah and Jake's lives in tatters, just as they'd shattered his trust. But the victory fell hollow. The pain of betrayal lingered, and the road ahead for him and Lily was uncertain. Still, he knew one thing. He'd exposed. Jake's world was crumbling just as fast. He tried reaching out to industry contacts, but the story of his affair had spread, closing doors before he could knock. The weight of his actions pressed down. He'd lost his family, his career, his dignity. Sarah, alone in her hotel room, stared at her phone, the silence from friends and family louder than any words. The truth Michael had unleashed was relentless, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. You won't believe how far the fallout went. Michael's email exposing Sarah and Jake's affair left their lives in ruins. Jobs gone, families broken, reputations destroyed. But the consequences keep piling up, and new secrets unravel. As Sarah and Jake scramble to salvage what's left, Michael faces a choice that could change everything for him and Lily. What happens next in this real story of betrayal and justice? Brace for the twists. The days following Michael's email were a blur of chaos for everyone involved. Sarah, now holed up in a budget hotel on the outskirts of Seattle, woke each morning to a flood of notifications, texts from former friends, voicemails from her parents, all demanding answers she didn't have. Her marketing career, once a point of pride, was in tatters. The firm's clients had pulled major contracts, citing the scandal, and her LinkedIn profile, once brimming with endorsements, now sat dormant, flagged by recruiters as toxic. She tried reaching out to Michael, texting apologies and pleas for a conversation, but his replies were non-existent. The silence was worse than any argument. Jake's life unraveled just as brutally. Kicked out by his wife, Kate, he was living out of a suitcase in a run-down motel, his savings dwindling with each passing day. Job applications went unanswered. His name was poison in Seattle's tight-knit marketing circles. He tried contacting Kate, begging to see their kids, but she was unrelenting. "You don't get to play dad after this," she texted, attaching a screenshot of the email Michael sent, as if he needed reminding. Jake's attempts to reach Sarah were equally futile. Their once passionate affair had dissolved into mutual blame. "You ruined us," Sarah texted him late one night. Jake didn't respond. He had no defense. Michael, meanwhile, was navigating his own storm. He'd moved Lily to his sister's house temporarily, shielding her from the immediate fallout. Explaining Sarah's absence was agonizing. He told Lily her mom was on a work trip, hating the lie, but knowing the truth would hurt more. His lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Rachel, assured him the divorce would be swift. The evidence of Sarah's affair, combined with Michael's stable job and clean record, made full custody of Lily a near certainty. But the legal clarity didn't ease the ache of explaining this to his daughter or the betrayal that still burned in his chest. The scandal continued to ripple. Sarah's parents, once close with Michael, stopped calling after he refused their pleas to work things out. Mutual friends picked sides, most siding with Michael, leaving Sarah isolated. One evening, Lisa, Sarah's former best friend, sent a final message. "You broke a good man. I can't be part of this." Sarah stared at the text, her hands shaking, realizing the depth of her isolation. She considered therapy, a job search, anything to claw her way back, but the weight of shame kept her paralyzed. Jake's desperation led to a reckless move. He showed up at Kate's house, hoping to talk, but found the locks changed and a police cruiser parked nearby. Kate had warned him about trespassing. Defeated, he drove to a bar, where a former co-worker spotted him and posted about it online. Sought Jake drowning his sorrows. Guess betrayal doesn't pay. The post went viral in their professional network, further burying his chances of recovery. Jake's only solace was a fleeting thought of confronting Michael, but he knew he'd lose that fight, too. Michael, focused on rebuilding, made a bold decision. He listed their Seattle home for sale, unwilling to live in a place tainted by Sarah's lies. He found a new place in Portland, a fresh start for him and Lily. The move wasn't just practical, it was symbolic, a way to leave the wreckage behind. But as he packed, a new twist emerged. A cryptic email arrived from an unknown sender, someone claiming to have known about Sarah and Jake's affair long before Michael did. Check Sarah's old work laptop, it read. "There's more you don't know." Michael's stomach churned. He'd thought the worst was over, but this hinted at deeper secrets. He found the laptop in a box of Sarah's things, untouched since her departure. Powering it on, he discovered a hidden folder labeled Personal. Inside were emails between Sarah and a senior executive at her firm, dated before her affair with Jake. They suggested Sarah had flirted her way into a promotion, promising favors for career boosts. Michael's anger flared anew, not just at Sarah, but at the culture of deceit she'd thrived in. He forwarded the emails to Rachel, who added them to the divorce case, strengthening his position. As the move to Portland loomed, Michael faced a choice: expose this new evidence to the firm, potentially destroying what little remained of Sarah's professional life, or let it go and focus on Lily. The temptation for further justice was strong, but he thought of his daughter's future, her need for stability. He decided to hold off for now. Sarah, unaware of this new discovery, checked into a cheaper motel, her savings nearly gone. Jake, meanwhile, took a low-paying job at a warehouse, a far cry from his marketing days, his pride swallowed by necessity. The consequences of their betrayal were inescapable. Sarah and Jake, once the architects of their secret world, were now its casualties, while Michael stood at a crossroads, balancing justice with healing. The truth had torn their lives apart, but what else was it hiding? You won't believe how this story ends. Michael's exposure of Sarah and Jake's affair left them in ruins, but new secrets pushed the stakes higher. As Michael rebuilds his life with Lily, Sarah and Jake face the final cost of their betrayal. Will justice prevail, or regret consume them? A real story of truth, consequences, and redemption that'll leave you stunned. Ready for the ultimate reckoning? 3 years had passed since Michael Thompson sent the email that shattered lives in Seattle. Now in Portland, he'd carved out a new beginning for himself and his 11-year-old daughter, Lily. The divorce was finalized swiftly, with Michael gaining full custody thanks to the irrefutable evidence of Sarah's affair with Jake. The house in Seattle was sold, the memories of betrayal boxed up and left behind. But the scars remained, softened only by Lily's resilience and Michael's determination to move forward. Sarah's life, meanwhile, was a shadow of what it had been. After losing her job and marriage, she drifted between low-paying gigs, her reputation as a marketing star reduced to whispers of scandal. Friends had abandoned her, and her parents, though supportive, kept their distance, their disappointment palpable. Therapy became her lifeline, forcing her to confront the choices that led to her downfall. One session unearthed a painful truth. Her affair with Jake wasn't about love, but escape, a reckless bid to feel something beyond the monotony of her life. The realization didn't absolve her, but it sparked a resolve to rebuild. Jake's descent was steeper. Kicked out by his wife, Kate, and estranged from his kids, he worked grueling shifts at a warehouse, far from the high-flying marketing career he once had. His attempts to reconnect with his children were met with cold silence. Kate had rebuilt her life, focusing on their stability. Jake's only contact with Sarah was a brief, bitter calm months after the scandal, where they traded blame before cutting ties. Alone in a cramped apartment, he faced the wreckage of his choices daily, his pride replaced by regret. Michael's new life in Portland wasn't perfect, but it was honest. He landed a better engineering job, coached Lily's soccer team again, and found unexpected solace in a friendship with Sophia, a single mom and old friend of Kate's. Sophia had warned Michael about Sarah's odd behavior years ago, only to be dismissed as paranoid. Now their shared scars, her own divorce, his betrayal, drew them closer. Over time, friendship turned to love. Sophia's two kids blended seamlessly with Lily, creating a new family built on trust, not secrets. The final twist came at a charity event in Portland, organized by Kate's niece. Michael arrived with Sophia and their 3 kids, his confidence a stark contrast to the broken man he'd been. The room buzzed with familiar faces from his Seattle days, but the air shifted when Sarah walked in. She'd been invited by a distant cousin, unaware Michael would be there. Seeing him happy, surrounded by a new family, hit her like a wave. She stood frozen, clutching a drink, her eyes locked on Lily, now thriving, laughing with Sophia's kids. Jake was there too, lurking in a corner, his presence barely noticed. He'd taken a catering job to make ends meet, a far cry from his old life. When his gaze met Michael's, he looked away, unable to bear the weight of that moment. Sarah, catching sight of Jake, felt a pang of regret, not for their affair, but for the lives they destroyed, including their own. She approached Michael, her voice low. "I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I need you to hear it." Michael's expression didn't soften. "You're right. It's too late." He turned back to Sophia, leaving Sarah to retreat, her apology unanswered. Kate, also present, watched the scene unfold. She'd moved on, her kids flourishing, her career as a teacher steady. She'd forgiven Jake enough to let him see their children occasionally, but trust was gone. Seeing Michael with Sophia, she smiled, a quiet nod to justice served. The event continued, but for Sarah and Jake, it was a stark reminder of their isolation. They'd planted lies and reaped loneliness, while Michael had sown truth and found freedom. Sarah returned to therapy, channeling her guilt into a new path. She enrolled in online courses, aiming for a career in social work, hoping to help others avoid her mistakes. Jake, humbled by his fall, started attending a support group, grappling with the man he'd become. Both carried the weight of their choices, but they were learning to live with it, step by painful step. Michael, driving home with Sophia and the kids, felt a rare lightness. Lily's laughter from the back seat was proof he'd done right by her. The truth had cost him dearly, but it had also set him free. As for Sarah and Jake, their punishment wasn't just the loss of jobs or families. It was the mirror of their own regrets, reflecting back every day. The story closed with a simple truth: betrayal destroys, but those who face it with courage can rebuild, while those who deceive often lose themselves.